Let's call the committee of the whole to order. Tuesday, July the 12th, 2005, right at 5:35 p.m. Councilwoman Judy Wallman is present, Councilwoman Garner, Councilman Porter, Vice Mayor Bell, Councilman Losner present. Item 2A is the approval of the minutes of June 14, 2005. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Porter, second by Ms. Garner. Any questions on the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2B is the Metro PCS agreement and resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'll take that, but before we start, I'd like to introduce two new employees.
Oh, okay.
If I may. On the right here, we have Doug Smith, who's our new planner. Came to us from Sarasota,
Welcome, Doug.
Florida. And then we have Dick Comerford, a new utilities director. Came to us from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and other places.
Fantastic. Welcome to the best little city in the United States.
I did say we had a good start. They started Monday and they came back today, so we're moving right along. So.
Just wait till Friday.
That's what
next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
This item on number 2B is the Metro PCS contract. Metro PCS has requested to place an antenna on our water tower. This approval, or if it approval or disapproval, but is conditioned upon completing a review by the water tower manufacturer, which the specs are there now, and they're looking at that when they attach it to the water tower. But it's basically a 5-year term with a 5-year renewal. There's a cost recovery element to the contract that caps out at $10,000, and we think that's an appropriate amount. We shouldn't go over that. And the capital PCS, Metro PCS has agreed to a capital contribution of $4,000 to the parks, and we're looking at lighting, I think, for the parks. Is that a correct statement, Kurt?
Lighting detector system.
Yeah, lighting detector system. Lightning detector system for the parks. Revenue to us is $2,100 a month, and 5% increase annually after August 1st of 2007.
I'll move with a question, Mayor.
Moved by Mr. Porter with a question, second by Ms. Wallman. Mr. Porter?
Mr. Ivey, is there a limit to the number of, antennas that can go on that side?
Yes, there is a limit, and it's engineered to make sure there's no interference, and it's also engineered to make sure there's no structural problems to the water tower. Actually, this is going on a ring that's been constructed on the water tower for the purpose of moving these different antennas.
There's still a possibility for expansion as far as others besides just this one now?
That's correct.
Okay. One other question, kind of unrelated. The sign that's on there, the painted sign that's on there, what's going to ultimately happen with that? Just since we're talking about the tower.
We had talked about this some time ago, and then we thought we would be painting that water tower anyway, and we thought we would wait until we painted it and to the sign, to change that sign. But at any time, we can have the new logo, and it will be paid for by the racetrack to be placed on that sign. We just haven't forced that issue yet.
Well, now then, but I know that there was conversation about the painting of that entire tower or water tower or water system, but that's not the case at this particular point. It doesn't need to be done.
I don't know, Julio, when we have it. Mike, you were.
Mr. Mayor, council members, we had the water towers painted, I think, a couple of years ago, and initially we started with the idea to paint the entire water tower, and due to funds restraints and our consultants advise us they could, have a life expectancy of more. But I think the next time we paint them, and should be within the next 2 to 3 years, we will be painting the entire tower because we cannot skip it for 2 consecutive terms.
It would just be nice at some point in time to get that logo or emblem up to speed with whatever it truly
What
is.
is actually the
you know.
logo for the racetrack.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2C is the Homestead Landfill Phase 2 proposal, tab 3.
Yes, Mayor, this is involving Mayor Roscoe Warren Park. We are beginning with the second, I guess the second phase, and we were required, as we're putting in this, what they call the RAP, with the County Durham, to do some additional water testing, which we've gotten with our consultant. It's a $75,000 item. It's been approved by the county, and we will be paying it. The county will reimburse us for the additional testing. We also, of course, we're still moving forward on that part of the park that is not under the landfill. So we're going to be doing, even though as we do that design, it also, this other portion that is under the landfill comes into play. Once we do these additional water testing, which is already, this will put it into action, then they'll start approving the RAP and they'll move forward on the rest of the cleanup. So basically that's what this involves.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move it.
Moved by the Vice Mayor, is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Mr. Porter. Any question?
I'm sorry. Is ATC no longer going to be involved in the process at all, or?
No, it's RRS it will be, and the attorneys approved us doing the contract under RRS. So
I just was, from
Right.
here on out, probably ATC, we won't see any more ATC.
we won't see much of that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2D is the Police Pension Plan Amendment and Ordinances.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll give you a kind of a quick explanation if you want, 3 or 4 questions deep, and explanation of the accompanying chart. I'll have Marcy explain that. Looking at the chart could be confusing, because you got door number 1, 2, 3, 4 on out. Basically, there are 3 items that have come up involving 2 things. 1, the pension board and the state, and 2, items that have come up in our negotiations, and I'll explain those in just a minute. As our pension plan sets, we do not meet, even though it's a good plan, we do not statutorily meet certain elements that the state requires for the pension plan's minimum standards. And because of that, they withhold state money because we do not meet those standards. So we've been meeting on this for a while. Met with the board. We agreed to move. We won't meet the total minimum standard in the area of overtime, but we will meet the minimum standards in other areas. So the study shows the money involved with the normal retirement age of 55 with 10 years. That's the state requirement. You will include 244 hours of overtime in making the calculations for retirement. Right now we have like 6% of your overtime is what we have, and it falls below that amount. So we're actually having 244 hours added. I think 300 is the cap we've got to get to. We'll continue to look at that next year to bring that up to 300 so we meet that minimum standard. So those were 2 items there. Also in the negotiations, we said in the second year we'd study increasing the cap from 75% to 80%. We've done that. We're recommending to do this as we move forward as a result of our negotiations. And then the third item is to increase, the board had asked the city to allow them to increase the maximum numbers of years for buyback from 4 to 5, which would be expensed by the employee. The total, the state money will pay for the 244-hour increase and the 55 and 10. For the 75 to 80%, the difference, I guess I should say the total of everything between what we pay now versus what we'll pay after these 3 elements are put in is $3,835. So it's not a major price tag to the city to complete these items, and we're recommending to move forward on this.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move it, Mayor.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Waldman, second by Mr. Porter. Any further discussion on this issue? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sexual Predator Ordinance, tab 4.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this is a discussion item. A couple of things. You have some paperwork at your desk which actually lists the sexual predators and some general information about the program, as well as in the back you have a map that we did, and we have the proposed ordinance, draft ordinance attached, drawn up by our attorneys, under the premise of a 2,500-foot radius from schools, parks, and
Daycare centers.
Daycare centers, thank you, from those 3 items. And just to give you a visual of how that coverage meets the city, basically I think you'd probably have to live in a tent in the mitigated area to be outside those 2,500 square feet. So, yes. Good. Marlene, you want to add something?
Take a look at the map. These flags denote the actual location of the registered predators within the city limits. How many are on here, Marlene?
There's approximately 71 located within the boundaries of the city of Homestead. You'll notice some that are down in Florida City. They were included in the count and just put on the GIS map.
Because they're in the radius.
Right, and those are sexual offenders and sexual predators.
Ms. Warner?
I just had a question. In reading this, I understand that this is for only new people moving into the area. Anyone who already lives within 2,500 feet and you are a sexual predator, you are not going to be forced to leave. Or that if you live at a certain area and they do decide to build a daycare center or a school, you won't be forced to sell and leave at that point, correct?
Right, those are
because you're grandfathered in.
Right.
But my question...
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry. My question is, on landlords and tenants, I want to make sure everybody truly understands this, that it's their responsibility to check the record and see whether or not their tenant is a predator, and if they rent to someone, then what's the fine? I guess that would be directed to the attorney.
I think, again, we're going to have to rewrite our code enforcement to make that fine. What was that fine, $500?
What we're going to do, the attorneys are going to take a look at this as far as adding some particular verbiage to Chapter 7, which is the City of Homestead Code of Ordinances, dealing specifically with code enforcement, to define just what that infraction would mean as far as a fine.
I just want to make sure that we're very clear on that, because there's so many rentals, you know, from the houses that are being flipped, especially in the east part of town, that, you know, I want to make it very clear that it's their responsibility as well to make sure that they're not renting to someone who is a sexual predator. And I can hear it now, well, I didn't know, or no one informed me, or whatever, but I think it's just very important that the message goes out there loud and clear that the landlords are just as responsible. And if there's a fine imposed, I think it should also be imposed to the landlord.
Noted, and we're working, of course, we're discussing this, and it's a draft ordinance right now. We'll bring, if you approve of this and we make the changes, we'll bring the ordinance back to you, as well as we're going to have to change our code, make a separate code change just for that particular issue.
And enforcement will be primarily code enforcement and not...
And the police.
And the police.
They're supposed to register, those kinds of things, and if we find where they're not, then we have some legal response for them.
And Mr. Mayor, if I might further respond to Councilwoman Waldman's question, we will also be proposing some additional language for subsection F that will talk about the nature of the landlord's responsibility.
Okay, good.
You brought that issue to our attention, and so what we would suggest is a standard that reasonable due diligence be exercised, and it'll be created as sort of a safe harbor that if the landlord's done the best they can, then they won't be subject to the fine or enforcement.
Okay. Just want to make it real clear when we start this, so somebody can come back and say we didn't tell them.
Mr. Losner?
Yes, well, yes, thank you, Mayor. And Kurt, I think addressing some of the issue of this category of person slipping in, isn't there some connectivity between a state agency or county and connectivity that they have to register, and that information comes to us, and we can determine whether they're in or without,
That's correct.
in or out of that zone?
Correct.
Is the Vice Mayor?
Thank you. First of all, I'm glad to see this, and I know that this is a reaction to what's happening nationwide as far as sexual predators being caught, apprehended and prosecuted and then released very quickly, especially in light of what just happened with the young children. One of my questions is, and I think that it is good to make everybody responsible for who's living in their home if they're a landlord. I know they can go to the FDLE website. What if somebody comes from out of state, comes into Florida and moves in? Does Florida also pick those up on the FDLE website?
They're supposed to register.
If they register.
If they register.
Right. If they don't register, then we won't know.
Okay.
Until they're discovered.
Because it's really, in response to Councilwoman Waldman too, Judy, I agree with that, because there's no excuse for you not knowing. It's just a little quick check on the web to see who's
There is no
living
nationwide registry yet.
But that's what I was going to ask. We need a nationwide registry.
There is actually about 20 addresses we couldn't cross-reference from our state list here.
Is there any provision where a landlord could contact the Homestead Police and say, can you check them out for me before I let them move in? Is it totally up to them if they're saying I'm not finding anything on the FDLE website, but they're coming from Massachusetts or whatever?
I don't know of an actual registry that exists where they could go right to that. I'd have to get a legal determination whether I think we should be able to give some information and backgrounds on that, running it through our system, and then if there's connectivity with a registry in another state, being able to get to that and make that check as well.
Yes, I think the standard we should put in the ordinance should be general. It should be this type of due diligence standard, but specifically, I'm sure if the city police department wants to cooperate, and I mean, basically, as you said, most of the stuff is on the web, and there's an obligation to register.
Thank you.
Captain, what kind of impact would that have on the department if
Mr. Mayor and Council, we'd have to first determine through FDLE if we would be allowed to do it under those circumstances or not. There is specific provisions through Florida Department of Law Enforcement that allows individuals to get backgrounds on different people, but there is a charge of $23 to do so. But they will tell them whether or not they're a sexual offender or predator right off the bat. So.
Mayor. I also think it's important to note that within this language, it also says that there's no time deferred. In other words, once you're convicted as a sexual predator, it will always be there. There's no time served or time, gone by, 10 years, 15 years. You're still what you are, and I think that's very important. I'd like to keep that. And Linda, you and I are, I think, on the same brainwave here. I'm worried about those that don't register and how many people, slip through the cracks in the system, And I know there's probably tons, and I don't know if we have any research or documentation that tells us how many people just don't register. Figure they get caught. If they get caught, they get caught, and if they and what happens if they get caught? It's a fine. They pay the fine, and then they're back out again, right? I'm looking at Captain.
They would be in violation at that point, of course, and subject to whatever the court finds appropriate, either fine or confinement, depending on the violation.
Well, at least we're making great steps and great strides, and anything is better than nothing. And I think this sends a very clear message out to everyone.
Mayor.
Mr. Losman.
Thank you. One final issue that's occurred to me. This is, getting out the word to the landlords. And I guess I'll put in a plug here for what I hope is in the pipeline to enhance our landlord licensing provisions. That if landlords are licensed, it's easier for us to get the word out to these property owners that are rental properties that that they have some burden and some legal requirement to screen their tenants. I mean, I look at this akin to the commercial paint ordinance. You know, we really went out of our way and publicized it and sent things out with the business license renewal, yet there are still those who plead ignorance, and I think that ordinance that I think is coming into the pipeline now will help us better get this word out to the landlord side of the equation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Porter?
Susan, the concern, I guess, is if we don't do something like this, and we're the only municipality that could be uncovered from the restriction, then we would be the only place left in the county for
Safe
haven of the predator. So we're really in a situation where we have to take this position because the rest of the municipalities are going to do the same thing.
I've heard similar sentiments from several other councils, both in Dade and Broward. There is one city in Broward that has said they're not going to do it and they're going to go after cities if they get in trouble with this. It's Hollywood. I don't know if they will, but they say they're going to sue.
Well, it's not the ground.
Most cities are going ahead and adopting their own, and this is the model that has been followed in several of our cities.
The point is, I think that it's going to be harder to go it alone than it would be to just go ahead and create the rules and the regulations. So I think we have no choice really at this point.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr.
Mayor,
Porter.
just
Ms.
one last
Wallman?
comment. Keep in mind, with that being said, that as other cities adopt this, and we haven't done so yet, they can move here and they don't have to leave because they will have been here before it was passed. So with that being said, I urge to staff to move this forward as quickly as possible because that can happen.
Mrs. Shahada?
Mr. Mayor, council members, just regarding the city of Hollywood, I hear once on the news, actually they repeated several times that they have something in their emergency notification system, the phone system, if sexual offender moves a neighborhood within a certain diameter, they will notify all the neighbors by calling them and telling them their sexual offender moved to the neighborhood.
What good does that do?
We have a first and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good. Litigation report, Mr. Sirota? Yes, sir.
2 words, avoided.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Joseph Sirota here for the firm. This is one of the more unusual reports that I'm actually presenting. I guess I could call it a non-report, but the reason I'm here is that our firm has been doing outside litigation for your city, for Homestead, for the past 14 years. Currently, we have one single case that we are handling for you. That is a case, the Collections USA versus City of Homestead, which, by the way, was, believe it or not, the occurrence occurred before the hurricane. That's how old this case is, and it's going to jury trial in September. I'll have an executive session with you probably prior to the jury trial. But that's the only case we've got. That case does not look like it's being settled. The manager and I went to a mediation, and we really were not close. So I think that case is going forward. However, other than that case right now, we've settled one other case, which you are all aware of, but that's it. And there's nothing else that our firm is handling right now. And the reason that I bring that to your attention, other than the fact that I usually appear here talking about issues and problems that you have as opposed to problems that you don't have, but I think there's reasons why we are in that situation litigation-wise, I mean in a positive situation. And I think there's basically 2 reasons. The first reason is your staff. I think that your staff, meaning the manager, assistant managers, HR director, Marcy Heath, your department heads, are really taking great care in the way that they are working with your employees. And most of our cases, as you all know, tend to be employee-related discrimination cases and things like that. And most of them have occurred, of course, years ago. we have seen a tremendous change in the way that these cases are not coming out, and I think it's because of your staff. They're working both, I think, with us and with each other, being careful, recognizing issues. If they are disciplining employees or terminating employees, they're doing so in a careful, calculated way, and the result is it's saving the city a lot of money because we're not having those litigated. So I think that's the first reason, and I think that that's a continuous thing. Now that, of course, doesn't mean that it'll never happen again. Of course, it will happen again. But if you look at what we've done over the last 14 years, we have always had 3, 4, 5 of these cases going at the same time for the past 14 years. We've got 0 right now going. That's the first reason. The second reason is that we have, pursuant to your direction, pursued cases and not settled cases. I mean, we do, of course, settle cases, and you're well aware of them. But we have also, and I went back about the last 3 years, and I'm just going to very briefly go through. There's at least 6 cases that the council did not want to settle, and we prevailed on. The first one was Moffett versus City of Homestead. That is a reverse discrimination case. We won in federal court and on appeal. Bradshaw versus City of Homestead, another discrimination case. We won in federal court, and there was no appeal. Next is Kent versus City of Homestead. This was a discrimination retaliation claim. We prevailed in federal trial court and affirmed it in the federal appellate court. Next case was Guillaume versus City of Homestead. This was an action against the city stemming from a seizure of $2.6 million in a drug forfeiture. The city was accused of breaching the settlement agreement, and they asked for attorney's fees. We prevailed on that case, no appeal. There was a Capetta case, which you remember was a challenge to the city referendum. The way in which that worked, we prevailed in the trial court and also in the appellate court. That's in state case. There was also a Pritchett versus City of Homestead. This was a suit against the city claiming a wrongful or negligent investigation. We won in the trial court, and we also won in the appellate court. And I think that that also has a positive result. I mean, I know that Councilman Porter always reminds me whenever I come in looking at a settlement, you know, he says, well, why are we always settling? And I'm telling you, Councilman Porter, we don't always settle. And I think that because we don't always settle and we are prevailing on these cases, there are fewer and fewer out there. So I think it's a combination of both of those things. Now, my final comment is certainly we know that there are challenges ahead. We know that the Jason Williams case was recently filed, and we're working with Eric Stetton's office to defend that. I mean, there are matters and there are challenges for the city and for your attorneys ahead. But the fact is that the reason I did want to come forward is to tell you that other than this other case that we've got going forward, there is virtually 0 litigation costs that you're going to be getting during the next 6 months other than this case. And I sincerely believe that there will be very few in the future. It will happen. There certainly will be other cases, but I think that there will be very few. So that's my report, is to come and give you positive news instead of asking you for money or telling you that we're going to trial. So that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
Well, Joe, is it a sign that we have good legal representation, or just we've been lucky over the last couple of years?
Just lucky. I think it was just. I think it's pure luck. No, I would like to think that we're doing a good job for you, but as you well know, and we don't make the facts. We really don't. And that's what happens. Even in the cases that we've won, I mean, people will sue. So I think even in the cases that we've won, we've had good facts. And many of these we take these into federal court, and federal judges really look for a lot in these cases, in these employment-related cases. And we've been able to show them that there hasn't been enough there. So unless there's any other questions, that's all I've got.
Well, let me compliment you and your whole team, Joe, for just doing a stellar job year after year. And I'm sure our management review committee will look at a fee increase in the next 5-10 years.
Well, you know what? I was just I was really going to put that off till the next council meeting, but as long as you, no, I'm just
I'm going to
kidding.
be absent.
But I will also tell you that I really do think, as I say, we don't make the facts, and I really think that the staff is a major reason, especially in HR, that these things are being handled. Because, you know, you have a lot of employees, and issues come up, and discipline comes up, and terminations come up. So they are happening. It's just that they're being handled properly.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. We're now on 3A, which is the bid renewal and mitigation maintenance, tab 6.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a recommendation to the City Council to approve an extension of the original bid number 200-215 mitigation maintenance with Aquagenics, which would run another year through September 30th, 2006, and this is in keeping with the existing contract, has in that extension provision. They do our mitigation out on our 530 acres and our 160.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Mr. Porter, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hodge. Any comments on it? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Purchase of additional circuit breakers from HICO.
Yes, Mayor and Council. This is in relationship to Redland, the Redland substation. We have for some time been working the design and the plans, and we've been coordinating with FPL over connecting with their transmission lines, that interconnection, which is a very touchy type of activity for FP&L. Once they hook up to their transmission lines, they consider that, and they do all kinds of calculations, which I can't even begin to go into, about the risk factor of causing an outage by adding extra transmission line on, and then being from somebody else as well. So our initial plan in Redland Construction was just to tap into their transmission line and move. That was the cheapest and quickest way for us. For the longest time, FP&L had agreed to that. Then as we were pushing through this whole process of getting all the approvals, they decided that they wanted to do something different, a ring bus, they call it. Don't ask me to tell you exactly how that works, but there's a ring bus that really provides a breaker at the site, the site where we hook in. We do a ring bus. It doesn't have to actually be there, but I think where they're designing it. But that will, I guess, provide an extra layer of safety that if our line has a problem, then that breaker will break and it doesn't impact as negatively the FP&L transmission line. They've really insisted on that. We've had several meetings. I've met with them. This is the way it's going to be, and kind of a scenario. So we are needing 2 more breakers to be able to meet those requirements and hooking into their transmission lines. So it's not really for our substation, not a whole lot of choice on this.
Any motion for approval?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Hogg, second by Mr. Porter. Question, Mr. Porter?
I have a question too.
What about the 20-week lead time, Kurt? I mean, I know there was a time constraint that we've been talking about with this, and is this critical to the plant?
We'll still be in our time frame with this. We're really the way we don't have to go back out and bid this, because we're at the same company we bought the other breakers from that we had anticipated inside our substations. So I'm told that this will not negatively impact our time schedule.
Is that okay? Just seems like it's getting real close to that crucial point, you know, where there was the theory was there could be a total blackout. Now I don't know if that's, well, you know, there was issues as to whether or not that was relative to be a good number or not. So I rely on staff's opinion to do that. I just was concerned with the 20 weeks, the lead time.
I'm told that we're still within the time frame that we need to meet our requirements.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
That was my exact same question, but what I was doing was comparing that, the 18 to 20 to 12 to 14 with a very little difference in the bids. So I was wondering if it was worth the extra couple $1,000 to have a 12-week lead time as opposed to a 20-week lead time. That was my question, similar to Councilman Porter's.
Mr. Mayor, council members, actually what Kurt said is exactly right, and please keep in mind that this substation and the tie line are two separate items, so the substation construction will not be affected whatsoever, and this is not in the critical path, and the tie to FPNL could come after we have the substation completely built and operational.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 4 is Park and Recreation Committee. Councilwoman Woolman.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I just got an allergy throat drop in my mouth. This has to do with the allocation of the $950,000 from the said neighborhood parks monies. Many of you remember that we went to the county and we petitioned for them to release the money to us instead of the equestrian center. And we were very successful in doing that, and we need to further this along so that we can continue our projects, which we have allotted for James Archer Smith, $247,500, and for the Musselwhite Dickinson Senior Citizen Center, $346,500, Mistrata Park, $148,500, and Woodcock, $198,000.
Move the recommendation.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Item 5 is Public Safety Committee. Councilman Porter.
These are tough ones, Mayor. Money coming in. Let's see, tab 9 is the Department of Children and Family Grant. Captain Bo, you want to give an overlay? I know we've gotten this one before in the past.
That's correct. This will be for a 6-month period, though.
In the amount of $61,748.60. Move it, Mr. Porter.
Second. Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Tab 10, I don't have, so.
Item 10. Can we take that?
Yes, sir, please.
This is also a grant award from the Department of Children and Family Services. This is, Police Department has applied and received $119,016 grant for domestic violence. The match is $83,000, but it's done through, I guess, soft money in the sense of supervision, equipment, personnel, those kinds of things is our match.
Move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by the mayor, seconded by Councilman Hodge. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then tab 11 is the JAG grant. Mr. Manager.
This is also a grant to the city for the police department from the Bureau of Justice JAG section. This is a crime fighting grant. It does two things. One, it funds a part-time victim advocate that assists victims of crime in getting compensation, even going and getting restraining orders, those kinds of things as well. And it also pays overtime for the police department's hotspots project. And that is where we analyze a crime area or a situation. On overtime, we put a bunch of officers together. They do a plan. We go out and police the area.
This is what we just used on the Chrome Avenue, not this particular grant, but the hotspot.
Right, hotspot
was the way we used it. This will help us fund those hotspot issues.
That's correct.
Is there a motion?
That's an amount of $72,307.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor had a question.
Thank you. I just had a question. I think this is great, but what happens in both in both of these items, 10 and 11? We have, this grant where we're hiring 2 domestic violence case managers, and then this one we're hiring a part-time. What happens at the end of this grant with these employees? Do we just seek another grant again? Now we have these employees on staff. I mean, how do we handle that?
Well, basically, the way it's worked in the past, and Ed, you can correct me if I misspeak. One, we've been very successful. SOS projects, got a very good reputation for getting results and outcomes. So we've been very successful in maintaining those particular grants. We also get other agencies that have people there will pay into the salary of the person because it helps them to work in partnership with us. Worst case scenario, we could have a situation where someone's been let go, but we haven't had that. And I don't know how many years you might want to add to that.
14 years since SOS has been in existence. They're contractual employees.
Thank you.
In our fallback, this forfeiture, if it's really important and it's a crime prevention program, we can fund.
They're actually consultants, I'm sorry, contractual consultants.
Okay, thank you.
They're not employees.
Yeah.
Is that all, Vice Mayor?
Move it. Yes.
Is there a motion by Vice Mayor, second by Councilman Hodge? Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Mayor, let me just bring up one thing real quick under public safety to Captain Bowe and the manager. There was a request brought to my attention by some of the downtown merchants regarding the, I know we have the signs that we can trailer around that are posting the speed limits, and one of the concerns that we always have downtown is the tractor trailers and large amounts of traffic getting too close to where the detour is. Is there any way that we could take a look at the weekend before some of our major events, pulling those signs into a vicinity further away from the actual detour that notify people ahead of time, detour at Flagler, detour at, and it'll be a flashing sign instead of just a detour sign that most people really don't take into consideration until it's too late. And I know we've got two signs, and if there's some sort of a cost factor involved, maybe we take a look at that. But there certainly is a problem with traffic getting bottlenecked at the Maury and the 4th Street area, especially when you talk about the 18-wheelers. Maybe we could forewarn them a little bit further back away and get some of that problem. Plus, it looks like it may be a 12-person homicide with all the flashing lights, and nobody really knows what's going on. So if you could take a look at that. I had spoken briefly to some of the police officers. They didn't know if it would have a huge dollar value to us, but it might work out to be better in the long run.
Yeah, we own the signs. Just have to program them, I think, with the message. Just have to program
them. Well, I think it's my understanding that the signs can be programmed and timers go off, and then at 8 o'clock it changes from speed limit of 30 to this detour ahead scenario, and then it goes off at 11 and goes back to speed limit 30 again. So it's not like it may be real time intensive for the officer, maybe just pulling them around or moving them from one location back to Chrome, and then after the event away from Chrome to the other location. So that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
How many do we have?
2.
Just 2?
Those they're about $22,000 to $25,000 a piece, aren't they?
That's correct, Councilman. They're not cheap. We got them through grant funding.
And I know one of the concerns right now is we've got to get them off the road.
And CRA assisted as well.
So.
The CRA paid for one of them.
Yeah. Thank you, CRA. You're a good man.
I think
not much demand for those anymore.
I can say, Mayor, I think PD's done a good job on these grants. Tonight's $253,000 worth of grant funding that they went after and searched out and achieved to provide services for the citizens without coming out of our normal tax money.
And I will say this hotspot mentality is something that we need to continue, because it's really like a focused effort on an individual problem in a geographic area. So you can go in and hit it and then move away and go hit another problem area and back and forth. And it keeps the officers in the ability to move around somewhat undetected, and the criminals a little bit harder time to figure out where they are. But it's really a concerted effort and an individual problem. And I think it worked well on us on Chrome. I think most of the council probably heard positive feedback from that, and hopefully we can continue. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any other business, Ms. Wallman?
Well, I just wanted to say to Mr. Porter that I happened to be on Chrome Avenue yesterday in front of Seminole Theater doing a little tour, and we couldn't hear ourselves talk because of the trucks barreling through there. So if there's anything we can do to speed up situation with Chrome Avenue. I know that the merchants would really appreciate it, and I know you're doing everything in your power, but I just want to tell you, it's bad.
FDOT.
FDOT, write your Congress. And I also wanted to say that in regards to those flashing signs, with that soft opening of BJ's on the 23rd, maybe we could put one of them out there saying, have patience, or, because I know it's going to be a zoo that day over at BJ's, and so that might be something that, Mr. Porter and your department might want to consider.
I don't know if at some point in time we might want to consider having since we don't have a regulated system except the four-way stop sign, that 90% of the people either run out of frustration by the time they get to the sign, or number one, they don't know how to use the signs. We might want to consider having an officer be prepared to maybe direct some traffic there, because certain times of the day that's a very tedious situation without a grand opening of a big box. So,
Mr. Porter, on the 28th and 29th, the grand opening, they've ordered 2 police officers for off-duty. Assuming that could be traffic control there. Don't know for sure.
But the soft opening is the 23rd, and everybody that hears about it's going to be out there, for that whole week. So it's just something to be concerned about. And Mayor, just one more thing. I wanted to congratulate and say thank you to Public Works, because I know in our neighborhood we had a ton of branches and limbs and leaves, and I took a little drive through Sunday throughout the neighborhood, and there were just all kinds of trees down, and people diligently bringing them to the front. And you've really cleaned up the city nicely. So on behalf of the Beautification Committee, I say thank you, because you'd never known that we had had the storm in most places. You've really done a really good job.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Along those same lines, I'd also like to include the electric utility department. They were out late Friday into the early morning, and then back Saturday working. Trees going down took some of our poles down, and that was one of our problems with transformers. So they actually had to rebuild some pretty extensive electrical work there. So they worked quite long hours there, and the police department did a great job. The lights were out, the traffic lights were out, so they were out there. So everybody, especially our first responder type departments, quite busy over the weekend, did a good job. Everybody worked on the weekend. Everybody came in on the weekend, so that's always pleasant to know. When you always have your plan, but when an incident happens, does it work? And these guys did a good job. These people did.
Have we been asked yet to go north to help out yet?
We were asked to go to Key West, and then it turned out that they didn't need us after all, and we haven't been asked anywhere else at the moment.
Thank you.
There's another one out there. No business, Mayor, thank you.
No business, Mr. Porter? No, sir, thank you. Vice Mayor?
One quick thing. I think the sexual predator ordinance that we're getting ready to pass is very, very timely for me. And my 18-year-old daughter goes downtown to the state attorney's office tomorrow. She's a witness. She was, and I'm not going to go into details, but she was accosted, I guess you could say, by a sexual deviant. And so why this stuff always happens to our family, I don't know, except for the fact that we will show up, and we're prosecuting and pressing charges, and we've got the young man. And so I just think it's very, very timely, and we have to do everything we can to ensure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen, especially, right here in our backyard.
I agree with you, since it was my neighbor. So, across the street neighbor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Hodge?
At this time, Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Losner?
Yeah, I just want to add my commendations to Public Works that I saw out in one of the really bad squalls at 7:30, quarter of 8 Friday night, cleaning up when there was going to be more cleanup to be done at that very site. And the utilities line crews virtually in my backyard for 5 hours Friday night, resetting a pole and restringing the wires. Sure. Yeah, it's some very bad weather. They were there. Thank you, Mayor.
Just want to say good job to the whole staff and all the employees of the city. Just fantastic response. And that's what those good customer service training programs at Marcy are going on. But just thank you all very much. A very good response in a very difficult situation. So, job well done. Mr. Manager, anything?
Nothing, Mayor.
Meeting is adjourned.
Do you know that we had more weather than... Do you know...